Hi, welcome back to Best Ban as ever. So, in today's video, I'm going to sort of move on from what I did in my very first video. So I had a little spaceman on the shoulder, I had a rotating moon, and I had a 3D background. So today, I think I'm just going to play around with the concept of the moon rotating around the head. But in this case, I'm going to up the ante, as it were, and I'm going to turn it into a flying donut. So, for this to work, I'm going to use the template which has the bow tie attached, as you can see here, with the I don't know what you call these guys. I heard the guy's name is called Charles, so I guess I'll refer to him as Charles as we go along. And I suppose it'd be interesting to find out what the other avatars, pose people. It'd be interesting to find out what their names are. So as time goes on, maybe I can use their names. So anyway, I'm going to work with Charles here, and currently we're in the 2D view. We have the 3D view here. Obviously in 3D view you can move into other positions. However, I think for initial kickoff, I'm just going to stick to the 2D view as it's a lot easier just to get on. Obviously I'll need to go into the 3D view later because I'll be playing around with the depth slightly. So first of all, I'm going to go to the asset library and I'm going to import from the AR section. I'll go to the 3D objects, or in this case primitives. I'll take the Torus because that's the closest to a donut. Should be noted in this learning, I'm not going to manipulate the material of the Torus primitive. I'm going to leave that for another lesson or learning, basically. In this one, I just want to get it flying around Charles's head. So, first of all, I'm going to now add. So, it's kind of a debate. Do I delete the drag here null, which is attached to which the bow tie is attached to, which is referenced inside the patch editor? See here, so this is what's going on in the patch editor, and this is all related to the drag here, null. And you see it's tracking a lot of things. Now, I don't necessarily understand all of it just yet, but there's definitely references to the bust in different positions. There's a multiplier being used. The open mouth is being tracked. So what I think is going on ultimately is that I think if we open up this, the head occluder and the bust occluder are being manipulated. So as Charles moves his head, or opens his mouth, or opens his eyes or closes his eyes, things are being manipulated so that the occluder is still covering as much of his head as possible. Which is important because obviously if we want to have a donut flying around his head, what we don't want is the donut going through the middle of his head. So it's important that the occluder is as big as it can be, no matter what the situation is when the head is rotating or being moved. Anyway, that's that point. First of all, I think I will just add a null. I know that null is there. You can just type it in. I think I'll just click it this time. Some of my other tests I've done so far, I've been typing it out. Right. Okay. I'm going to add some quick animation to the null, first of all. I'm going to add a loop animation. God, so many things to learn all over again, eh? I'll add a transition. So what do I want to manipulate? I'm going to manipulate the rotation on the Y. So this will basically mean that the null is rotating on the Y axis. We'll see why in a moment when I add the Torus primitive, how that relates. And then I'll add in the rotation over here, because that's the thing I want to manipulate. So I'll just apply that. There you go. So the null is now rotating. So that's not necessarily what we want for rotating around the head, but it's a start. Alright, I'm now going to add the primitive to that null that's rotating. So I'm just going to chuck that on. Right, so there you go. So now we can see the primitive is rotating, but it's rotating because the null is rotating. So first of all, what I'll do is I'm going to pause that, and I think I'll. Oh, Charles doesn't look very happy. Oh, I'll worry about that later. So, okay. I now need to move the primitive away from the null. So at the moment the null is technically centered within the head, but I don't want the primitive to be there. I want the primitive to be away, so when the null does rotate, the primitive is like several points away from the null, so when the null rotates, the primitive goes round, and then in theory it should go around the head. So you've got a couple of ways you can do it. You can either use the controls up here, so you can adjust the position there, and that's the blue one there is the Z, I think. You could change it over here. I think I'll try it over here. Okay, let's unpause that. Oh, sorry. Screen it. Wow. Okay, so 1 second duration is probably not the best. Let's drop that down to 10. Okay, so 1 is too far. Wow, I really have got to learn what the distancing is. Right, okay. So 0.1 is not. Okay, so 0.5. Okay, so 0.4. Let's go 0.3. Okay, how are we looking now? Ah, that's not too bad. Now, that's not working too bad. It's not really interfering with Charles's head too much. It definitely seems to go around the back. Now, there's a little bit of a cut-off there, but it's not too bad. I think I'll reduce this to 2 so it's a bit closer to his head. Ah, see now there, it went in his head. That's not good. Okay, so I'll increase the distance again, back up to 3. And I'm going to do something now. I'm going to move it so it's not just part of the face tracker. I'm going to add it to the head occluder and see what happens. I have a feeling I know what's going to happen. Okay, so does that work? Well, one, it's now miles away. Okay, so I think we need to reduce that distance down. Okay, well, that's not so bad, but it's a strange angle, so I guess we need to move the null up a bit. So I think, okay, I'm going to lift the null up on the positive Y a little bit. Oh, it's quite a lot, not too much. Okay, it's not too bad, that. Okay, I think we'll go with that. Right, so okay, let's give it a bit of emotion. So I'm going to copy that patch, paste it in again, and then I'll add a transition. Sorry, I should say what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to add some animation to the donut primitive, because let's be honest, it looks pretty boring. And in this case, I think we're going to need to manipulate the Z. Let's have a look. Okay, we've got some movement. Let's decrease that a little bit and make it quick. That's not too bad, is it? Right, well, let's crank that back up to 10 seconds. Let's make the planet rotation, or the orbit, up to 30 seconds. I think that would be quite nice. That's a bit, see now that's better. But it's odd, isn't it? Attached to his head. May not be right. I mean, let's pull that null back out. It'll be attached to the head. And let's just put it here. Oh yeah, because I'd moved it on the positive. Nah, it's a bit weird, isn't it? Okay. Oh, not part of the microphone. Good grief, I really am learning a lot. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that it needs to be attached like that. I think, yeah. Ah, okay. So, so adding direct. No, that's not right. So it needs to be part of the occluder, right? So if I put it into the group one, speed up this orbit. Sorry about this, guys. As I say, this is all learning for me. So, no, so the group one's not right either. So it's going to have to be part of the head. Because that's the mask, of course. Sorry, that makes total sense. That's where I should leave it. Okay, right, so I'm going to reset that orbit back to 30 seconds. Okay, so now we've got a bit of movement. Now, I guess, what happens if we add 360 to the X rotation as well? Okay, so that's a nice, that's a bit more random, well, feels a bit more random, but it isn't necessarily random, but that looks a bit cooler, doesn't it? Alright, well, okay, I'm satisfied with that progress. I think in the next video I'll learn how to basically change the donut primitive, so maybe make some updates to it and maybe add some more donuts. So maybe we can have a sort of be a wash of donuts rotating around Charles's head. Alright, well thanks for your time guys, do appreciate it. Take care.